Hey, welcome back to this little mini series that I'm putting together about this custom signature 5-string bass that I'm building. Last week I showed you some of the basic math and some of the processes that we're using, and this week I'm going to show you how I screwed that all up on the first one, and then how I solved all those things I screwed up to make what I still think is a pretty cool bass that'll eventually be for sale. And then the third installment will be the finished original signature bass for the client by that name. So let's jump in. To refresh your memory, or if you didn't see last week's video, the basic concept of this instrument is it's a one-piece 5-string with like modern active electronics, but a more vintage style neck with a really wide nut. And we're doing a maple body with these walnut inlays that are getting recessed into the body to give it some contrast and some color and stuff. And so I did the fingerboard in last week's video and everything worked out perfect. And so I was like, great, this is going to be a piece of cake. And I went and started to do the body. And for the most part, it was a piece of cake, but there are some numbers that you have to pay attention to. Notice I recessed that screw really deeply. There's some numbers you have to pay attention to and adjust based on what you're laying out. So here you can see in my body blank, I am routing this pocket that this walnut inlay will go into that we just cut. And the edge of it has like a little bit of an angle, so it'll slide in and there won't be a glue line. That's the whole principle. At the headstock, I did that as well. And then I went around, cleaned it all up, and just glued the walnut in. That's really all there is to it. Not a lot to go wrong. But here you can see I'm doing this headstock. The same thing. I'm just using weight and letting it sit overnight. And now once the glue cures, I can go in and just remove all the excess walnut and just level, just like by like a couple hundredths of an inch right off the top of this whole thing, and just make it all look smooth and beautiful, and then cut my instrument. In theory. So here it is the next day, and the first thing I want to do is remove all that excess walnut, and I just created a big rectangular tool path with a 2.5-inch like leveling blade to just quickly remove all that extra walnut before cutting into the body. And so here you can start to see what it looks like finished. You can see it just looks like one solid piece of wood with this thing, but the headstock I did not make deep enough. So I had to go back in and reroute that hole and make it deeper and sort of change the math and create a new walnut plug to put into that hole. The body came out fine. It was just the small size of that didn't work out right. Now once we solve that, the rest of this is smooth sailing, right? We're just making a one-piece bass like I've done a million times before. I had to put in all the cavities and then go to the back and create the shape of the neck and the body and the contours and all that stuff. What could possibly go wrong? But I messed up. And you can see what happened here is that it was, interestingly enough, just a simple mathematical error I made. These are where I put the graphite reinforcements in here, and they're too far away from the center, and so I just got a little close here. It was a little too thin. I just blew a hole in it. So obviously I can't use that for the client, and this neck is junk, but I got so much work put into this already, and the body looks so beautiful, like it seems a shame to throw this whole thing away. So here's what I'm going to try today. I made this template to cut this neck off, and then use this template to route this sort of custom oversized neck pocket. And then I'm going to try to make a new neck for this that I'll either bolt on or glue on. Probably glue on because I don't have a ton of material here. This is another change that I made in the customer's final one. I made this a little thicker. I'm hitting the ceiling everywhere. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I want to try it because also if I were to continue to make this bass as like a product line, I would probably switch it to a bolt-on neck anyways and design it that way. But so this will be well, let's just cut into it and see what happens. So sometimes I do these prototypes out of just some like 2x4s or something to make sure all the math looks good. But I really thought I had it right. Like I said, this is very similar to my Apeiron base, so I figured I had everything right, and I just didn't. So then I realized also I didn't really feel like cutting that with a jeweler's saw, so I grabbed something a little faster and just cleaned up this whole area and prepped it for creating a new neck. I love this little battery-powered router. I just recently got it, and I use it all the time. But the base of it was a little small for this giant pocket, so I had to switch to the older big boy so I could get a better cut on the center of that pocket there without running the risk of my router going crooked outside this ridiculous one-use template that I made. With that hole created, now I had to create a neck to fit it, and so I wasn't quite sure exactly how all the math was going to work out, so I made it with the intention of doing a little bit of editing. And there's that fingerboard you saw from last week's video, from this really cool piece of sort of a maple live edge almost. I was able to squeeze a fingerboard right out of the middle of it. The thing I love the most about the CNC router is, like I always say, it's like there's a second me in the shop, but one of us knows what we're doing. And that frees up the other one who doesn't know what he's doing to mess around and try some other stuff. So the pickup system that this base is designed to use is the Fishman Fluence system, which is pretty expensive. And I thought it would be, instead of buying another one for this other base that I'm making out of the errors and mistakes, I thought I would just wind a set of pickups. And so I basically recreated a jazz bass pickups and wired them to work in the same way, but I made them in this bigger soap bar size hole. But I overwound them, and those two little holes I put in there were kind of covered in the wine, so I had to create new holes. And I was like, oh, I guess there's a reason why the jazz bass puts its holes on the sides. But so I just created 3 new holes. I plugged those other holes with little bits of dowel so you don't see them as much. And created this real, for now, one-off, one-of-a-kind pickup system for one of my basses. Maybe I'll make them again. I don't know. It's an option that's on the table now. You know how I make a living? I make a living by making things, not content on YouTube. I don't make any money doing this. I actually kind of lose money because I refuse to take money from a bunch of stupid companies selling stupid products that you don't need. But what I do try to do here is advertise the stuff that I make that I hope you will find useful. Like obviously all the instruments and stuff that I make for musicians, but then I know a lot of people watching this channel are also people that want to make stuff themselves. And so I like to offer some parts and some plans for that. And then I also have this sort of side hustle of mine called Square Tools. And this started out of a tool that I had designed in 2017 of just a sort of simple little multi-tool here. This is the original Square tool, a layout tool that I designed and I have made right here in the USA, and I'm really proud of it. And that spawned a whole generation of tools that I've been slowly developing. And they're not, for the most part, tools that exist anywhere else. They're like my take on pre-existing tools. Like, for example, the frets rocker. This is something I obviously didn't invent. Fret rockers exist all over the place, but what most of them have are only 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. I added this 5th side for people that work on multi-scale instruments and mandolins and stuff, so you can get into smaller spaces. And also put this sort of measuring tool in the middle that you can use to find the center of your nut or to mark out string spacing and stuff. If you don't have this tool that I make over at Square Tools, which is the string spacing guide, which you can use to locate spots on your nut, and well, here, I'll show you right now. So this is the 5-string being featured in this video, and in order to mark up this nut, of course with these strings I might want to sort of compensate and change the spacing so it's not perfectly even, but if I do want it perfectly even, I can just use this tool right out of the box as it is. This is the string finder, available at squaretools.com. You can see it's designed for 6-string instruments, but you can also use it for 5 or 4 by just only using 5 or 4 of the points. So here I would find my edge parts, where I want my strings, how far I want them to be from the edge of the neck, and then I can just space that out and mark. And there's my 5 tick marks, and they might not get you 100% of the way there, but they're going to get you 99% of the way there in every case, and in some cases 100% of the way there. If I was making a 6-string, I would just use all 6. If I was using a 4-string, if I'm using a 7-string, you got to get a little more creative for things more than 6. But you can see this is going to save you a lot of time. You can also use it on acoustic guitars on the bridge end or anything else you might need to find. You can actually use it as a center finder if you just use 3 of them, like this. That is if you don't have the mini center finder that's available at Square Tools, or the original Jumbo center finder, also at Square Tools. Okay, back to the show. Back to the show, I had to hand route that neck pocket pickup, and then I didn't want to guess incorrectly on the neck and have it, be too shallow or make the pocket too deep, so I figured I would just do all this by hand the old-fashioned way. I fed the neck into the pocket, figured out how much overhang there was, and just removed that from the top of the neck before gluing the fingerboard on. I had to go in way far in the body anyways, like further than I would want to, just because, I'm trying to solve a problem. Like, future versions of this instrument would not be done this way. But, you make do with what you got. And the problem solving is, it's good practice to always, stay sharp and not just work the way you always do. So there you can see that looks a lot better. Then the fingerboard goes there, and now we're back in business with another working bass, but I did not like the look of how that interrupted the walnut. In the last video, I showed how I decided to make this one a fretless, and I took the fingerboard, sanded it all down, and epoxied it right into the fret slots, so you would have cheater lines and stuff. Something I don't normally do, but it was fun to do, and it's, again, something else I can add to my stable of work. And then once that was done, I was able to glue that onto the neck, and then I was able to glue the neck into the body, and then all the time I'm doing this, I was thinking about how I was going to fix that seam that I didn't like. Oh yeah, and there's always a little bit of finishing you have to do on the neck once you get the fingerboard glued on there. It was a little bit challenging to make sure the neck was really glued in there good, but I think I got it. And yeah, the next day I still didn't like the way it looked having the neck go into that hand-routed pocket. It just wasn't clean enough for me. So I figured the best way to cover that was to build like a little, just like wooden ramp type thing to cover it. I figured there's no rules, no reason I can't. I used this piece of scrap walnut and my original square tool to figure out how big it needed to be and just cut something out that fit over that hole that didn't look like it didn't belong. I softened the edges too, just to kind of give it a look. Now with the pickups made, a new neck on there, and that seam covered, all the problems were solved for this bass. So it was just time to sand it all down and finish it and put it together. I also had to go through and wet sand the epoxy fingerboard and try to get that looking good. I also used some like acrylic polish on it when I was done sanding it up to 3000 grit. And yes, that is Windex. I use Windex to wet sand. It works great. A little bit of a soapiness to it, not just water. After bringing out the grain with some linseed oil, I finished this one with some furniture butter by Walrus Oil, just like a real natural feeling finish. And it's very flat, not a lot of shine to it, so I thought that would look kind of nice in contrast to the glossy fingerboard. Let's have a listen. Boy, I'll tell you what, I couldn't be happier with how this turned out, considering how I felt when I had all those problems on the CNC router. It looks great, it plays great, it sounds great, and I'm so happy that I was able to save it. Although this was, you know, like I kind of said, it was the prototype cuts for the client instrument. I don't want to waste anything, my time. I don't want to waste the material. This came out great. I don't think you would even know it was a glued-in neck. But even the grain looks like it makes sense and stuff. But in the future, if I make more of these, I think I will redesign that area a little bit and make it a bolt-in neck. Obviously, if I did a glue-in neck, I could do it properly, so I could do it on the CNC router, but I think I could do it that way as a bolt-on. I think that would make it a more versatile instrument in the future. But so that's this one, which is going to be for sale, if it's not already for sale, over at newperspectivesmusic.com for a discounted price, because it is a prototype in the process of designing and building the one that I made for the client, which you get to see next time. And I can't wait for you to see it, because if you like this, you're going to love that thing. All right, see you then. Be good.